So when you think about game-changing inventions, your mind probably jumps to things like microchips, maybe the printing press, or the engine. But what if I told you one of the most transformative pieces of technology in all of human history is just a curve? That's right, the arch. Its invention didn't just change how we build, it fundamentally changed how we live. It was a quantum leap in what was possible, and it defined the entire ancient world.
But before this revolution, humanity was, well, kind of stuck. For literally thousands of years, the greatest builders on the planet, we're talking the Egyptians, the Greeks, they all slammed into the same invisible wall, a basic physical limit that put a ceiling on the scale and grandeur of everything they tried to create. So what was holding them back?
6 meters. That's it, about 20 feet. For thousands of years, that was pretty much the widest space you could build across without the whole thing coming crashing down. Just stop and think about that for a second. Every single great hall, every temple, every palace was boxed in by this one frustrating number. So why? Well, it all comes down to some pretty simple physics.
Okay, let's break this down. The old way of doing things, the system used for masterpieces like the Parthenon, is called post-and-lintel. It's simple, 2 posts holding up a flat beam. The problem is gravity. All that weight pushes down right in the middle of the beam, trying to bend it and snap it. And stone is just terrible at being stretched like that. That's called tensile strength. The arch, though, the arch is pure genius. Instead of fighting gravity head-on, it uses a kind of martial art move on it. It redirects the downward force, channeling it out and down along the curve. It turns that bad stretching force into a good squeezing force, compression, which stone absolutely loves to handle. It's not just holding weight, it's elegantly guiding it to the ground.
And what's so incredible is that this brilliant idea wasn't just one person's aha moment. Nope, it was a concept that sparked into life all over the world, with different civilizations figuring it out on their own. It was a truly global evolution in engineering.
So let's take a quick trip through time to see how this thing evolved. The earliest true arches we know of popped up way back in Mesopotamia, around 4000 BCE, cleverly built from just mud bricks. The Egyptians used a simpler, stepped version, a corbel arch, deep inside their pyramids. Meanwhile, completely different styles of arches were being developed all the way over in India for temples and in China for massive tombs. But the real game changer, at least for the West, came from the Etruscans in Italy. They got really good at building stone arches, and they passed that crucial knowledge directly to their very ambitious neighbors, the Romans.
So how do you actually build one of these things without it all collapsing before you're done? It's a really clever 3-step dance. First, you build a temporary wooden skeleton called centering that gives you the shape of the arch. Then you start carefully placing these special wedge-shaped stones, the voussoirs, right on top of that frame. But the real magic, that happens with the very last piece.
The keystone. This is it. The linchpin. The second that final central stone is dropped into place at the very top, it applies pressure to all the other stones, wedging them together so tightly they can't move. It literally locks the entire structure into a state of perfect compression. At that moment, you can pull away the wooden frame and the arch just stands there. A perfect balance of forces, seemingly defying gravity.
Now, the Romans didn't actually invent the arch, but man, did they perfect it. They took this ancient, brilliant idea and they supercharged it with a revolutionary new material, an innovation that would let them build on a scale the world had never, ever seen before.
And what was this secret ingredient, their secret weapon? It was a special kind of volcanic ash called pozzolana. When the Romans figured out how to mix this ash with lime and rubble, they created something absolutely extraordinary: Roman concrete. It was stronger, lighter, and way more versatile than anything that had come before.
And this stuff was a total game changer. Think about it. Because it was lightweight, you could build higher and bigger with less support. Because you could pour it into molds, you could create almost any shape you could dream up, those huge soaring domes and vaults that just scream Rome. And get this, it even hardened underwater, which was insane for building bridges and harbors. And maybe the biggest deal of all, you didn't need a whole army of highly skilled, expensive stonemasons anymore. This was literally the recipe for building an empire, fast.
And here is the jaw-dropping result of all that innovation. Just look at this. On the left, the Parthenon in Greece, an absolute masterpiece of the old post-and-lintel system, right? Its interior spans about 7.4 meters. Now, look to the right, the Roman Pantheon. By combining the arch with their new concrete, they created a single, open dome that spans a staggering 43.3 meters. That's almost 6 times wider. This wasn't just an improvement. This was a complete rewriting of the rules of architecture.
But here's the really important part. This tech breakthrough wasn't just about building bigger, more impressive stuff to show off. It was about solving the fundamental problems that any growing civilization faces. The arch didn't just build monuments, it built an entire civilization.
Just take a look at the Pont du Gard in France. Okay, so you've got a booming city, Nimes, and it desperately needs fresh water. The nearest source is 50 kilometers away across a river valley. What do? Well, if you're the Romans, you build this, a massive aqueduct carried across the valley on 3 incredible tiers of arches. This wasn't a luxury item. This was a lifeline. It's what enabled the city to grow and what made public sanitation possible on a huge scale.
And, the sheer scale of this is just hard to wrap your head around. The stone used to build just this one aqueduct weighed over 50,000 tons. The level of ambition is off the charts. And the arch was the only technology they had that could make a project this massive, this elegant, and this incredibly useful a reality.
And you see this pattern again and again. The arch became Rome's go-to tool. How do you fuel the growth of your cities? Aqueducts built with arches. How do you entertain and unify a massive, diverse population? You build gigantic amphitheaters with, you guessed it, arches. How do you move your armies and your goods across a vast empire? You build strong, durable bridges with arches. Each one of these wasn't just a building, it was a piece of essential infrastructure that held the whole Roman world together.
And then, of course, you have the big one, the Colosseum. This is the arch in its ultimate form. The entire massive structure is just a brilliant repetition of that one simple shape. 80 arches on each of the first 3 levels, creating this stable, accessible, and awe-inspiring venue for over 50,000 people. It completely transformed public entertainment and civic life forever.
So when you look back, it's clear the arch was so much more than just a shape. It was a catalyst. It was the key piece of technology that solved huge structural problems, which in turn drove innovation in materials and ultimately reshaped society itself.
So if we're going to boil it all down, what's the real lasting legacy here? I think it comes down to 3 huge things. First, pure structural efficiency. It was simply the best way to span a gap with basic materials. Second, it pushed material innovation forward, leading directly to inventions like Roman concrete. And third, and this is the big one, these technical leaps led to a profound societal transformation. They made the very infrastructure for big cities, for mass culture, for a unified empire possible.
From those ancient aqueducts to the train stations we use today, even the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, this ancient curve is still all around us, which kind of leaves you with one last question to chew on, right? Roman arches and their concrete have stood for 2,000 years. So what are we building today? What physical structure? What piece of software? What new idea will people still be looking at in awe 2,000 years from now?